Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Norway. Specifically, welcome back to Stavanger, Norway. If you've been following Norway Chess 2025, I'd like to welcome you back to the coverage. And if this is just the first time you watched a chess video in your life, we'll be covering a couple of superstars in the world of chess today. It's the third round of action, and we've got Magnus Carlsen taking on Wei Yi, Chinese phenom. We have Gukesh, who's actually celebrating his 19th birthday. He's the world champion. He's taking on Hikaru in a crazy game, and Fabiano Caruana is going head-to-head with Arjun Erigaisi. Games are crazy today. Magnus Carlsen, for a period, was operating at 100% accuracy, but there were plot twists left and right, and a friendly reminder of the format. They play a classical game of chess, a long game of chess, but if that game ends in a draw, they then play an Armageddon format of 10 minutes versus 7 with different rules. We're going to get into all of that and the scoring in a moment. Yesterday, Magnus lost to Hikaru in the Armageddon. Today, he's looking for revenge against Wei Yi, and Wei Yi plays knight to f6. Magnus plays c4 and goes to an opening that, in my opinion, he should not be allowed to play. I don't know how they would possibly decide such a thing, but the International Chess Federation needs to have a meeting, a productive meeting, where they just ban him from playing the Catalan. He should not be allowed to play this opening. This is one of the most cancerous, toxic, scummy openings in all of chess. You put this damn light-squared bishop on the diagonal. It pressures the opponent for the duration of the game. Black has to take this pawn and hold on like a roller coaster as white tries to bludgeon you, take a full center, develop everything. It's a very good opening, by the way. If you're an advanced player and you want to add the Catalan, highly recommend it. Now, Wei Yi, an experienced man, he takes the pawn on c4. The queen goes to c2 attacking. Black goes a6, trying to get white to take, play b5 quickly, which is why Magnus plays the move a4. And now this is the main line, bishop d7 and bishop c6. This has been played many, many times before. We have bishop g5 from Magnus. Now the queen gets attacked again and again. I promise this is all normal. Queen all the way back to c1, e3, stabilizing the center. And white is obviously, going to give up the dark squared bishop. It's gone out there to perish. And in the opening, after queen d1 was a new move. But what's crazy about this game, all of this, literally, and I really mean literally, all of this has been played before. Magnus didn't know that. As you can see, he has spent 22 minutes to get here. But this position has been reached in 2023 between two strong players. I forgot exactly where. The person with the white pieces is, I believe, Injak, who's a Serbian player, 2370. And in that game, white played the move rook b1 and went on to win after some 20 more moves. Magnus plays queen b1. So now we have officially, only on the 20th move of the game, reached a new position. Now, the Catalan is famous for several things. The bishop, dead. Queenside pressure against black, not dead, right? And powerful white knight, which is going to land on e5. All of these things, Magnus is going to use to his advantage. Wei Yi is about to feel the full wrath of the Magnus Carlsen effect. Rook c8, that is a deep move. He spent 37 minutes and 5 seconds moving the rook there, because he wants to open up these two files for the rooks and create counterplay. Magnus plays rook d1. Bringing a rook to the center of the board can't be a bad move. He also spends some 20 minutes, probably was contemplating some queen b4 stuff. Also, the move h4 is almost always useful in the Catalan, same side advancement of the king, but long-term ideas either to create an attack or to secure control over certain squares in the endgame. But we have rook d1, and suddenly Wei Yi plays c5. And I think Magnus basically thought that this move couldn't be played. Or maybe he thought he would have much more of an impact with the move queen b6, targeting literally everything in the black position. That's what he does. Wei Yi takes, and Magnus takes. But so far, white has a very, very pleasant position. Black is going to really struggle with these weaknesses, unless black is rated 2760. In which case, he will probably defend correctly, right? No. Wei Yi has now suffered the full impact of playing against Magnus Carlsen. He is down 30 minutes on the clock, specifically 36. He has an hour versus 24 minutes, and he's worse. Why is he worse? What's the problem with the move rook d5? The problem with the move rook d5 is that black is holding on to everything, desperately holding on to everything. And now this calm move, rook c1. which Magnus finds. Black's idea was to bring back the queen, trying to trade the queen, defend the knight, defend the rook. But he backs out of the position, and suddenly, this configuration of the black pieces is not particularly effective. Black is looking for the right moment to bring the knight back from the edge of the board and potentially stabilize. And Magnus, to this point, has played like a machine. Just a pure machine. The best way forward here, if you read the engine lines, they're a little mysterious. You know, like, Black wants to get some counterplay going over here. If you read the computer lines, they are strange, you know? The computer wants to play h4 first. There are some positions where you can maybe trade like this and bring the queen back and then try to completely take control of the file. That's also possible, but the computer first wants h4. It almost always wants to play the move h4. Magnus has a very good feel for these types of positions. But suddenly comes rook c3. Suddenly comes the move rook c3. And that's an inaccuracy. That's an inaccuracy. Why? Because after this trade, rook d6 back. And Wei Yi is back in the game. The queen needed to be on the b file. The rook needed to be on the c file. That is how the engine was envisioning long-term pressure on the black position. So the only advantage white has now is that Wei Yi does not have a lot of time. Rook to b1. Wei Yi kicks out the knight and goes queen e8. I mean, still, Magnus's horse has infiltrated the black position. It is a very annoying horse to deal with. This is still under pressure. This knight is still standing. The rook is hanging. Black goes king f7. What a move! Unbelievable defensive efforts. Magnus finally playing the move h4. It would have been nice, obviously, to have it. Wei Yi queen c6 check and trades the queen. This is a monster defensive effort from Wei Yi. 5 minutes on the clock, no bonus time. He has 8 more moves to make to get any bonus time here. Magnus playing h5, and Wei Yi plays rook c4, king f3. By the way, anybody wondering why you can't take this? It's because the white rook goes to b6. This is an incredibly deep idea for Magnus. Rook a4, rook b6. Black can't make a move. You can't move the knight because you're going to always lose the pawn. And then rook d6, rook d8, like, I'm getting in. So instead of that, king e8. And suddenly Magnus is better again. He has summoned endgame chances once again. He had to win this game twice, but he's done it. Now he needs to go knight to d3 and knight to c5. That is the idea. Knight here, knight here. This knight has been an MVP. Knight d3, knight c5. But instead of that, g4. And with 2 minutes on the clock, my man Wei Yi punches back. Pawn to e5, a clutch move. Magnus, knight g6 check, and king e6, moving behind the pawn. e5, king e6, tush push, if you will. Shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles. e5 and king to e6. Magnus doesn't have anything. Out of nowhere, Wei Yi, with a minute on the clock, makes it to the time control. 40 moves have been made, and despite having 1 minute on the clock, this man Wei Yi, clutches a draw. The knight comes back into the game, and it is perpetual check against Magnus Carlsen, who cannot run away this way to e2 or g2 because he would lose the pawn on g4, and then black has 2 connected passed pawns, and probably you just lose. So that's not very good. Now black actually can keep the game going. Wei Yi could have kept the game going if he really, really wanted to. But with 1 minute on the clock, he decides to call it a day. And my man clutches up. I mean, damn. And Magnus is going to be kicking himself. He's going to be like, in this position, this is Magnesian school of chess right here. We try to play h4, these little kind of like obscure improving moves long-term, proper piece coordination for the pressure. Don't know what he missed, but he has to play another Armageddon. But look, yesterday, he lost the Armageddon to Hikaru, but he was totally winning. Last year in Norway chess, he won 83% of them, 5 out of 6. 5 out of 6. Let's see. This time he plays d4. London, Wei Yi goes g6. Friendly reminder what the Armageddon format is. White gets 10 minutes, black gets 7. If the game ends in a draw, black wins. That's the trade-off. You give black the second result to play for, but black starts with less time. Knight c3, d5, e3, bishop g7. All of this has been played before. White now plays knight f3 and so on. Okay? Knight f3, castles, knight to e5. If white got their way, they would play bishop e2 and g4, and black would lose. Black would lose because black has to take. We trade, we open everything up, we play h5. Like, just to show you, again, if you got to play an unlimited number of moves, at the end of this sequence, you are absolutely bludgeoning here. h5, extremely powerful attack, long castle, bring the second rook. Now, shockingly, that is not going to happen. All right? Instead of that, Wei Yi strikes back, and Magnus plays a typical thing, f3. He's ready with g4 ideas. Pawn takes, knight goes to c6. We trade like this. We push Wei Yi's knight back. We trade off the knight because it was pressuring the center. And now long castle. Magnus had a good day so far. He's ready with g4. But overall, it is black who is calling the shots here. Bishop is pointing at the king. Bishop is ready to point at the king. d4 is on the way whenever you prepare it. Queen is ready to dart in. And suddenly, Magnus Carlsen gets a haymaker thrown right back in his direction. And in this position, Wei Yi sacrificed the rook. Rook takes c3 appears on the board. Oh my goodness. World number 1 down. This tournament has been so back and forth. Rook takes c3 is crazy. If you take the rook, queen a4 is mate. You can't even properly stop it because any way you do it, you lose everything. And then I'm going to get here too, and I'm going to get here too, and you lose. But Magnus stumbling back into a pretty reasonable position. Rook c2, discover check, and position isn't totally terrible, not totally terrible. But keep in mind, black doesn't have to win. All black has to do is make a draw. That's the beauty of the Armageddon. And Wei Yi, my guy, is down 5 minutes. He started the game down only 3 minutes, right? Only 3 minutes. But now he's down 5 minutes. How is he going to clutch this? But the truth is, what does Magnus do? What does Magnus do? If he takes on a7, he's going to lose his center pawn. There's the massive counterplay coming his way. He plays rook d1, rook h4, rook d8, and takes on f7. And Wei Yi plays rook h1. And despite being down over 4 minutes, not only does white not have a move, white is losing. Magnus cannot move his e-pawn. The bishop would activate, and e6 loses to rook b2 check, king a1, and rook c1 mate. If Magnus cannot move those pieces, he's going to really struggle. He takes on f5. King g6. Rook ggg1. The bishop is falling. You have to defend it. But you can't. Why can you not defend it? Let's say you play rook c8. I take anyway. Rook c1, and check. Pawn promotes. Ladies and gentlemen, Wei Yi doesn't just draw the Armageddon. He straight up wins it. Oh my goodness. That's a tournament shakeup. And as always, if you think that's the end of the recap, hell no! Oh my god, I have so many more amazing games. Magnus going down to Wei Yi and going down to Hikaru in the Armageddon 0-2 after winning 5 of 6 last year. How about this game? All right, Gukesh versus Hikaru. Folks, this is such a fascinating matchup because Hikaru and Gukesh played in the last round of the Candidates Tournament, and Hikaru had white. If Hikaru had beaten Gukesh in that game, Hikaru might be the world champion. So much was riding on that game. Gukesh was clutch, great in defense, clutched it out. And they've played since, of course. But there's a lot to prove here. Gukesh going down against Magnus early in the tournament. He can't go down against both the world number 1 and world number 2. He plays e4, e5, and we go into an Italian. And on top of that, he's 19 years old today. So a birthday present beating Hikaru Nakamura would be massive. He plays d3. Hikaru opting for the bishop e7, slightly passive Italian, not the bishop to c5. Castle, castle. Rook e1, d6. a4. All been played many, many times before. Although, if I check the database, I think there are some nuances here as far as the move order goes. Yeah, generally the bishop is going on c5, but of course black can play it, and it's all reasonable. But okay, a4 is the main line. Now black goes here, bishop slides back, black plays c5. All of this has been played before. Bishop d2 is rare. Bishop d2 is the rare move. Normally white either plays c3 or knight c3. c3 obvious, right? Ideas of d4 and b4 long term. Knight will go here. Knight c3 obvious idea, right? Knight c3, the idea is to control the d5 square. Bishop d2, a little bit more mysterious, targeting the knight, which now goes back, and now you play knight a3. So now we're in, you know, we're in Gukesh land. That's where we are. Gukesh obviously has prepared something here. Bishop d2, knight to a3. Black has several ideas with this pawn structure. One of those major ideas is this trade of the light-squared bishop. White's light-squared bishop sniping from the a2 square could be a problem, so why not get rid of it? We do. b4, and Gukesh is happily making progress. Hikaru plays b6. Now, something goes a little wrong here. The move order that Hikaru chooses in this game, slightly inaccurate, and Gukesh gets very nice pressure with knight c4. Now, at this point, Hikaru went into the confessional. And he said that he felt he messed up his position a little bit. He felt like Gukesh was putting pressure. But he explained that confessional, by the way, is the booth they can talk to the audience during the game where nobody can hear them except the audience at home. He basically explained that he feels like Gukesh might need to burn a lot of time in this position trying to figure out the different breaks, trying to figure out how he's going to actually punish Hikaru's setup, whereas Hikaru, having made this trade and opening up the rook, is actually going to be launching a counterattack against the king. So, b5. Now, what ends up happening here is it's actually Hikaru who is down on time. It's actually Hikaru who's doing a lot of the thinking, and Gukesh who's kind of playing a little bit faster. There were many, many ideas in this position. One of the ideas that Hikaru considered other than taking was the idea to sacrifice the knight in the center of the board. And then after d5, it looks like black is fine, but a strong attack suddenly brews over here. And it's actually black who is in severe trouble. The king is overexposed. Pawns have been pushed in front of the king. It's just too dangerous. So instead of that, instead of getting involved in this, we have pawn takes d4, bishop b4, and at this point, Hikaru came back to the confessional and was like, well, look, my opponent is playing a bunch of moves that are surprising me. And that's either a good sign or it's a terrible sign and I'm going to lose. And at this point, he said, I'm either going to lose this game in a few moves because I'm just miscalculating, or I'm going to draw it quite easily. And guess what? Yeah. I mean, great position, pieces off the back rank, life is good. Even close on time, it was like 30, 40 minutes before. So Gukesh, despite having a nice opportunity there, not able to capitalize. Rook d1, and Hikaru plays rook f4, happy to trade, maybe gonna double. Only thing is he might have a little bit of a long-term weakness here, and white has a space advantage here, but it really shouldn't matter. Gukesh playing a5. Hikaru can take. He does take. Again, the only thing that can happen long-term is this pawn is lost, and white wins the endgame, but that's probably not going to happen. We have rook takes d4. Rook takes d4. Or is there some life? Maybe instead of this, something else was necessary. Well, Peter wants a6, allowing b6, which is a little demented. There's another opportunity to play queen d1, queen c3. Hikaru plays rook d8. But suddenly, Gukesh has a little bit of life. And Hikaru here played queen d7 to defend himself. He could have also played queen b6. Queen b6 to defend himself. But he goes queen d7. And by the way, the idea there after queen b6 is kind of interesting. You're trying to go a5, which is really nice. That's a really nice idea. Queen b6 probably draws on the spot because of the a5 idea. The point is, like, If here you have a6 and you always have some back rank ideas. But if white plays h4, a5, there's no en passant because the knight hangs. So now the pawn is not passive. It's massive. All right? So that would have been the idea. But suddenly Hikaru's like, I'm feeling a little unpleasant. And he gives away the pawn on a7. Gives it up completely. Because he thinks he has enough counterplay against the knight. Gukesh is like, show me. Hikaru's like, here it is. Gukesh is like, show me. Hikaru's like, it might not be there. He might have miscalculated. Queen b6, a5 would have been clean. Gukesh now, he doesn't look back. Queen f4, and it's not going to be a long endgame. Gukesh goes straight for the throat. That's mate. That's mate. You can play queen d8, but I take here, queen f5 check. Hikaru resigns because he has this move, knight g6 check. Gukesh is going to win a knight. Gukesh is going to make a queen out of nowhere. Oh my goodness. The world champ is back, baby. He just beat Hikaru in a classical game. Not only does he have points on the board, he has 3. We use football scoring. 3 points. He won in classical. Hikaru just beat Fabiano. Fabiano just beat Wei Yi yesterday. Magnus losing to Armageddons. It's a crazy tournament. Everybody's beating everybody. Fisticuffs all over the place. Gukesh coming back from 0-2. Ain't nobody struggling anymore. Oh my God, his confidence is going to be way back, and he managed this time really, really well. That was only, by the way, that was only 2 matchups. We're 21 minutes into the damn recap. Now, this game was actually played at 100% accuracy. And you will know who it is by the time we get to the end. Fabiano Caruana plays the move e4. Arjun Erigaisi plays the move e6. Both these guys have already won a classical game in this tournament. Erigaisi beat Gukesh. Fabiano beat Wei Yi. We have a French defense. Now, here's where things get wild. This position was seen in the World Chess Championship. Gukesh ding. In this position, Fabiano Caruana plays something nobody has played before. H4. Maybe this was seen in some blitz games online, but nothing serious. You look at the opening database, it says 0. There's nothing there. Erigaisi responds instantly. He's not even surprised because he knows the line. He knows the line. Now, knight to f4, pawn takes, knight takes e6. Oh my good, attacking the queen, attacking the bishop, attacking the d4 pawn, queen to b6, queen to b3, queen takes, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes, queen a5, pawn takes, knight takes. Through the opening, these boys were playing the whole top sequence. And what we're left with is just chaos. Pawn is here. Pawn is here. Looks like ruins. Just the ruins of a terribly played opening. Black might even be better. But maybe not. Bishop b5. Erigaisi immediately goes for counterplay. Pawn on c3. Pawn on f2 attacking. Knight f3. Fabiano giving his pawn completely. Because by taking it, Erigaisi is going to unclog the arteries of the white position for the bishop. A4 is crazy from Fabi. Defending the bishop. I think Fabi might either still be in prep, or prep meaning he memorized this, or just remember the ideas of the position. A6, trading, bishop to b2, the knight leaves the position, and Fabi castles. Now Gukesh has to come up with a plan. He's a pawn up, but everything is on the back rank. What do you do? And white is threatening to win back the material. C5. Maybe these pawns are going to play a long-term, they're going to be a long-term asset. Yeah, more on that later. Rook e1. Black activates the bishop. Now the rooks are going to have to come in. The king is going to have to come in. Fabi plays rook c1. Here comes the king. It's running. The king is going to run straight forward and defend the pawns. Knight e5 check. The king is running. Fabi plays f3 to kick out the knight from the center of the board. But Erigaisi is not one of these boxers. These guys that are going to back up to the wall. He's not that. Erigaisi walks forward. They call him the madman for a reason. Knight into d2, knight into b3, helping the pawns. We're going. Fabi plays g4. Fabi has made his entire career in positions like this. All right? Pushes the bishop back, gives a check to throw off the balance of the king, and grabs the pawn on g7 in the meantime. Now, if the rook moves, you're going to give a check. You're going to move the bishop back. You're going to regain your pawn. You're going to have your own pawn majority. Erigaisi gambles. He takes the knight, losing the rook. Lunatic. Knight to d4, stable position, pawn is going to run. He's basically saying, Fabi, your pawns are too slow, and my pawn is really fast. Rook e8 from Fabiano, cutting the communication of the black position. Pawn to c3, 2 moves away from promotion. Rook c1, there's no fork. The white rook over there protects. You know how I know? Because in this position, both of white's rooks are hanging. You can only take one at the same time, at once. You cannot take both at the same time. Erigaisi can't just go boop, boop. Fabi's going to be like, what the King here, knight c1, now the rook escapes. c2, it looks like Erigaisi has won the race. Bishop h6. You're going to lose the race. Why? You know how I know? Because at the end of the day, these pawns are going to win the race. You're going to get that pawn, and these pawns are going to go. Erigaisi thought he's going to get one off, and he's got this one. Look at this. c4. Look at this. Bishop f4. Look at this. King c5. King b4. c3. g6. Pawn takes. h6, queen, gives it up. Rook b8 is a pin. That's a check. Doesn't matter because you queen, and this queen is too fast. If this white plays check, rook c7 stops the pawn. This pawn promotes. Fabiano Caruana just beat Arjun Erigaisi, and his accuracy for this game was 99.4% over 44 moves. He needs to piss in a cup after the game. Crazy. Obviously, it's a joke. We live in a time now where everybody accuses everybody of cheating in the chess world. I'm just laughing at the fact that this man just played the game of his last, 3 years. Losing a game to Hikaru, beating Erigaisi, beating Wei Yi, monster. Anytime Fabi's cooking, it's a good day for chess. Now, Ju Wenjun versus Vaishali. This one, unfortunately, has a bit of a tragic ending. They drew their classical game, which means they went to an Armageddon. And this one was a French defense. Ju Wenjun played a very simple and straightforward opening. She just developed pieces, exchanged French, bishop f5, and all of a sudden, a3. It looks like bishop f5 is creating a threat. What black had to do here is play knight e7, or knight f6 and castle. But she goes for an attack. And because white has a lead in development, after a3, not only can black not take on c2, black loses no matter what. If you take on c2, your knight just gets stuck. It looks like it's fine, but I'll play a move like even bishop d3, trade the bishop, and the knight just perishes. Bishop f5 is just one of these Armageddon-style moves that you play, but suddenly you have to go back, and after I take the pawn in the center, you sack your bishop and go here, but I'm overwhelming. And the move list is already, it's stopped. There's no more move list, because Ju Wenjun is a 5-time world champion for a reason. She carves this position up like a butcher. c5, queen e5, attacks the bishop, attacks the pawn. Vaishali was never even able to recover. That's sometimes the way it goes. Armageddon is crazy. I mean, you lose games out of nowhere in this format, and that's sort of the end of the story. So the 5-time world champion proving why she's very, very powerful. Lei Tingjie, this one also Armageddon after the classical game was drawn. Right, we have knight to f3, knight c6, bishop b5 was a was a Rossolimo, e6 castles, knight to e7, and in this game, a very interesting line with rook e1, bishop going back, and black playing kind of like a French defense. d3, g6. Both of these players have had good successes so far in the tournament, winning in Armageddon and keeping pace. And again, black is playing a setup here where, look, you got to beat black from this position. All right, that's them's the breaks. Castles, knight d2, and Lei is very, very, very experienced. She's going to put the bishops. She's going to use the pawn majority on the queen side. Let's see her go to work. Knight to e4, a4. I mean, you talk about an absolute dream. It's about to get even more dreamy, by the way, because on the next move, white is crushing. Take. Knight takes f5, g takes f5, c takes b4. If something like this, I think you can even just do this. Just b5. And white's doing great. Bring the bishop, bring the king. Easy game. Opposite colored bishops, but all right. I mean, doesn't mean it's a draw. But she plays bishop b5. And Muzychuk she's accurate, she's sharp, she has a lot of experience, and very quickly, very, very quickly, you're about to see, rook a1 takes, and black just starts creating counterplay. And even though she's down 4 minutes, she has 1:45 on the clock. Unbelievable precision, pace of the game, and before you know it, the time advantage is hardly even there, and black is just equalizing. Bishop b6, pawn down, but this is amazing technique, and this is just a draw. 13 seconds for white, and in the Armageddon, right, you just play, and what's going to happen is you're either going to lose on time or you're going to make a draw. They play, but it ends in a draw, and Anna Muzychuk is the winner. The most impressive game of the round was Humpy Coneru versus Sarah Kadam. This was a Queen's Gambit declined. By the way, look at the time, 2 hours, classical game. All right, we're not talking about Armageddon anymore. Take, Queen c2, little sideline. This is what Gukesh he played something kind of similar in the World Championship. In this position, I think he played Queen c2. Yeah, I think it was Queen c2 and then like something really random. But in that game, I think knight bd7 hadn't appeared on the board yet. So Queen c2, black goes here, and white just plays just like every piece on the right square. Everything is good. I've had this position, I think, against Pia Kramling, actually, in the Battle of Generations. Castle here, knight e5. And what you're about to watch is just a masterclass. So if anybody here wants to learn how to play the Exchange Queen's Gambit declined, here's how you play it. You trade. This is where all your pieces go. Take a mental snapshot. f4, d3, queen c2. Knight f3. You can also put the knight on e2 and try to play f3 and e4. You're going to put the knight on e5, just like in the London. Watch, bishop comes back behind the h3 pawn. Everything makes sense. And now what's going to happen is you're going to use these pawns and just go. Watch this. Watch this. g4. That restricts the knight on g7. And now the best move here for black, believe it or not, is to play knight d7, trade the knight. If white doesn't trade the knight, I don't know, make some general improving move, you don't even have to rush. You play f5 yourself. That's crazy. That is not easy. I think Sarah knew that, which is why she went rook f8, but it's too slow. It somehow doesn't work because now white plays f4, and worse than that, white plays f5. And if white plays f5, you're about to witness a masterclass Exchange Queen's Gambit declined bludgeoning. c4, the bishop comes back, g takes f5, I take on f5. I'm going to slide my king out of the way, and it is going to be a really, really bad time for those pieces over there. a3 is a little slow, not a bad move. She could have played king g1 already, king h1 already, but she does it this way. Knight to g4, queen here, and now she plays king h1, which again the computer is saying is a mistake, but it's all natural. Black doesn't have anything. She's really struggling to come up with a move here. Rook f2, knight back to g4, trading. And once the attack is fully formed and ready to go, there is probably no stopping it. Bishop g5, rook e2. I think again, Humpy does it her own way, and she's 25-40. And you know, I would have like sacrificed all my pieces and probably lost the game by now. But d5, bishop e5, and yeah, just very methodical, carving it up. Look at this move. You can't take the rook, but you kind of have to. And now f takes. Two connected pass pawns. Knight is going to f5. Queen is going to go to h6. Bishop is going to go to e4. King is going to go to g2. Rook is going to go to h1. Or none of that is going to happen. Because white is just going to go straight down the middle. Humpy with 2 wins thus far. Doing very well. We check in on the standings after 3 rounds of action. Anna, like I said, having a good tournament. Lei having a not bad tournament. Humpy also tied for first place. Ju and June all in the balance. Vaishali needs to catch up, and underneath that is Sarah Kadam, and we have Fabi in first place. 2 classical wins and a loss. Dude is just swinging for the fences. Carlsen, Hikaru, Aragaisi, Gukesh on the board. I gotta make sure that 6th place is not cut off. That's all I have for you today. Get out of here.